So I am super excited today. I have got with me none other than Jenna Platt, who is a nurse, and she's dual qualified nurse who's qualified in both mental health trained and in general adult trained as well, and has a massive passion of care for the elderly and end of life care. Jenna often describes herself as an empath alpha female. And I actually discovered Jenna like earlier on this year. And straight away, when I saw Jenna's Instagram handle, which is at that nurse who asks questions. So it's that underscore nurse underscore who underscore asked underscore questions. That caught my attention straight away. And the reason Jenna's account resonated with me was because in recent times, being a fellow health professional, it's been really difficult just simply to ask questions about the world and what's been going on in the mainstream. And anyone who knows me will know that's just really weird for me, and it goes completely against the grain for me. So it was only right that I invited Jenna to come and join me tonight, and not only to connect with her, but also to share with what Jenna's been up to these past few months in line with this whole concept. So thank you so much, Jenna, for coming and joining me with today. And please, can you share with us what you've been up to around the country?
Yeah, no, thank you very much for inviting me. So I have been walking every city in England, Scotland and Wales, plus a couple of towns with a sandwich board that says nurses are scared to speak out. And how that started originally for me to kind of take an action was I walked to London. So I walked from Stoke-on-Trent to London, which took me 10 days to hand deliver a letter to Boris Johnson to discuss the breaches of the Code of Conduct, which is the Nurse and Midwifery Code of Conduct, that was reported to me from thousands of nurses from all different backgrounds. So I felt really stuck. I felt like I needed to do something. I could see that there were lots of kind of rules in place that didn't seem to make sense. And I felt like people were being dehumanized wearing the masks. So I needed to take some action. So I walked from Stoke-on-Trent to London. That took me 10 days. And then Boris Johnson was actually in Stoke-on-Trent on day 4. So I'm there plodding to London, and he was actually in Stoke. And then I went to hand deliver the letter, hoping that the guards would take it and pop it in, and they wouldn't accept it. So I had to post it anyway.
Oh no! Why was that though? Why would they not accept it? What's that
They just
about?
wouldn't accept it. I don't know if maybe they didn't believe me. I don't really know.
Surely because added to the mailing pile, couldn't they?
Yeah, I would have thought that. Yeah, but so I may as well just posted it. But what that did do while in those 10 days was it created a community of people who were saying, "You're saying what I'm thinking." And that's when the conversations really started to kind of increase, that all the nurses that had already been in touch with me, it was, sorry, I don't know whether it's gone off on TikTok now, but
that's right. I stopped it on there. That's fine.
You've stopped it on there. That's fine.
Yeah.
All of the other nurses who had previously reached out to me, now other nurses were more aware of me, and it kind of, I guess, that confirmation bias that, there's more people like this. There's more people that are thinking like this, that have got questions, but are being bullied and ostracized. So that was the first thing that I did. And I also really struggled personally in the shops, going shops, not wearing a mask. And at first I was wearing a mask because I felt that it was helping people to feel more comfortable that were around me. But I got pushed a couple of times. I got shouted at, and I was like, no, I can't do this. I can't try and make other people feel comfortable when it's having a real negative impact on me. And I felt like, because my face was covered, that people were able to attack me physically and verbally. But then I had the hurdle of trying to go shopping with this. And that was really, really difficult. So I also did a lot of videos to help people go shopping, because a lot of people were contacting me, and with really disturbing stories, where there was this one lady who had been a survivor of sexual assault just before lockdown. She then had to be isolated, so there were no services. She was on her own. She was away from her friends and family after, going through this trauma. And now she's trying to get milk and bread, and she's got a security guard with no therapeutic or possibly medical training saying, "Where's your mask? Why aren't you wearing one?" And the trauma of, the reliving that trauma, every time she needed to go shopping. So I started to do videos around that, to help people. And then again, I felt like I needed to do something else. So I attended the marches, and I've got no shame in that. I'm attending the marches to help support other nurses. I'm attending the marches because you shouldn't feel like you're going to be bullied or ostracized for asking questions. I'm attending the marches because I want risk assessments. I want person-centered care to be in place. And then it just didn't feel enough. It felt like I needed to do something else. So I got the sandwich board, and that was just from pure laziness, because when I was holding my little placard, like, I was so tired. So I got the sandwich board, and then I stayed in London for 2 weeks with my sandwich board. The original plan was to walk 50 days in London. But it just felt like there was so much trying to grab people's attention that I needed to get out. I needed to move on. And then I had so many people messaging me saying, "Oh, like, it'd be great to meet you," or "I live here," or "Are you visiting here?" And I was like, actually, that's what I'm going to do. So I decided to walk every city in England, Scotland, and Wales. I was very proudly telling everyone there was 69. There wasn't. There was 64. So I made a mistake. So that's why I'm doing some towns as well to get the 69. And yeah, I've done all of Scotland. I've done all of Wales. I've done a good chunk of England. I've just done my 42nd city out of 69 today, which was Ely. Yeah, Ely.
Wow. So obviously, travel is something that this whole COVID thing started with you traveling anyway. You went to India for a little while, and then you had to cut that trip short, and you came back to the UK. But what does your husband make of all this? Like, where you're traveling around, and how does he feel? Because I know of friends and family, I know of other couples where they have polarized views about all these sort of things, and I'd be curious to know about what your husband makes of what your opinion is and what you're doing, and also just in terms of, I'm assuming, time away from each other for the amount of time that you're dedicating to all this work.
Yeah, so I'm so lucky. Like, I'm so lucky that me and my husband are, well, one, we're able to disagree, and that's okay. We're able to have conversations that are uncomfortable, and we are very aware. We've got a lot of self-awareness of each other. So yeah, we're able to disagree anyway. And there's some things that we do disagree on, but for the majority, regardless of whether we agree or disagree, he supports me. And honestly, I'm going to do it anyway. Like, I'm going to do it anyway. He knows that. But yeah,
as a
I've got
husband,
a massive...
I can relate to that example. That's that feeling. I understand what that means. We don't have a choice.
So lucky. Yeah, like, as I say, there's little bits that maybe we don't see eye to eye, but the like 90%, 95%, yeah, we're totally like on the same page, which is a massive help, because again, there's people that have reached out to me. They've been married 20, 30 years. The husband's living upstairs and the wife's living downstairs. There's this one lady who she was having a conversation, like the divide between her and her husband, and she's now got alopecia because she's so stressed. And for me, like, that experience is valid, like, but for whatever reason, she's not able to say, "Do you know what? I'm having a really rubbish time. I'm not able to communicate with my husband. My hair's falling out. My self-esteem's declined. I'm feeling really low in mood." Because then people say, but you're not dead. But she's having a rubbish time. She's allowed to have that rubbish time and say it's rubbish. But if anyone has got any different experience, that seems to be that knee-jerk response. And I'm so compassionate to people who have suffered or suffering due to the results of COVID. But I also see the bigger picture. Like there's, you know, if that's your COVID patients, like there's this circle of people who we're not giving any attention, we're not giving any emotion to. But yeah, back to my husband. I'm very lucky. During lockdown, so we got married January the 2nd, 2020, and then I was going to India for 5 months to find myself. I'm going to find myself because I'd already.
That's not your honeymoon. That's just you. That's just you.
That's
oh my gosh.
Well, a little bit of the backstory is we'd actually split up for 3 years. And then he apologized. So we went primary school together. We went high school together. We'd split up for 3 years. He apologized. And then we got married 12 days later in Vegas.
Wow.
So
well, to be fair, if you knew each other since your primary school, I think he can have 3 years off in that time, to be fair. That's fair enough.
But I'd already booked the ticket to India, so I was already going.
Right.
So it went from in our heads being apart for another 5 months to them being locked down together and then living and working together 24/7. You know, we survived that. We had a great time. Like, you know, we did loads of jobs in the house. You know, we were able to spend 24/7 together. And then now it's the complete opposite. Like, we rarely see each other. And even when I'm back home, I'm doing my washing, checking up on emails, checking up on messages, and then I'm fast asleep by 8 o'clock. So yeah, for our relationship, you know, we are able to be joint at the hip or not see each other. So I'm very, very fortunate.
Amazing. I think that's really important in especially in the kind of thing that you're doing right now. It just, you know, you need that support. Otherwise, you need someone to lean on and understand your goals and what you're doing. So that's super cool. I'm excited to hear that. So definitely cool. What about in terms of one thing that's, I guess, concerning me is about the choice conversation, the pro-choice conversation. And when we get into this topic, people go, oh yeah, you guys are anti-vax people or conspiracy theorists, and you get branded with everything else under the sun. And it's like, hang on, all we're doing is just doing what I think as health professionals we know that we've always done with our patients is give them information and they make the choice. We can't assume paternalism, certainly not since Montgomery law came into place a few years ago. What are your thoughts on, I don't know, I guess I'm asking you, I guess you're the person asking the questions, I'm guessing I'm asking you. How do you feel and where do you think things are going to go with regards to if the whole nursing profession because that's already happened in certain parts of the healthcare industry already. So how do you feel, or where do you think it's going to go where if nurses are going to be asked, man, you're going to have the vaccine, it's mandatory now?
Yeah, I'm very concerned about that. Very concerned about it for several reasons. That one, I don't think it's a case of a pro and a con lying down the middle of a piece of paper. This is the pros, this is the cons. I think it's so much more complex than that. And one of the conversations that I've heard is experienced intensive care nurses, unvaccinated, it being suggested that they are replaced by inexperienced vaccinated nurses. And this is all about patient safety. Patient safety isn't what's injected into my body. Patient safety is about the experience, the rapport, the even just knowing where things are, especially in intensive care. You've got so many drawers, you know, you've got so many different alarms, you know, just knowing the team, the rapport with the team. Patient safety isn't one thing. And that's concerning to me, and not just in intensive care. You know, if you think about areas, people who who support individuals with learning disability, they're probably there for a long time. They've built up a rapport over years. They've managed to support that individual with communication if there's communication barriers. And now you're saying that nurse should go and somebody else should come, even though that patient's got a rapport with them and they're able to communicate with them. It's so much more complex than if you don't have it, you're not caring. And unfortunately, I think the media hysteria has created just a black and white picture. You have it, you care. You don't care. And what I'm finding while I'm walking is people will say, I support the nurses, I support the nurses, I support the nurses. What are you talking about? So I tell them what I'm talking about, and they're like, oh no. So you'll support the nurses when all you have to say is, yeah, you deserve a bigger pay rise, but you won't support the nurses when it's a little bit uncomfortable, or we have to consider like outside our knowledge of what, because while I'm walking, people are repeating the same responses to me. The vaccine is the only way out. The vaccine is the only way out. And, the only thing that those people have in common is the telly. So as I'm walking around seeing all these different people, they are repeating the same objections to me. So I'm really, really concerned that it's a very complex decision, patient safety, a very complex scenario has been given too simplified solution. You have this, you care, you're safe, you don't. And yeah, there's so many different levels to it. So I'm very concerned that many experienced nurses, not just nurses, but I talk about nurses, but care assistants, physios, OTs, the whole multidisciplinary team. I'm very concerned that we're going to have a dropout of very experienced staff, or we're going to have very low staff morale because people feel like they've done something that they didn't necessarily want to do.
And what would you say to people who say, but Jenna, you're, and I don't mean any disrespect to you, but if they were to say to you, but you're just a nurse, what would you know about immunology? You're not an immunologist. What would you say to them? Going, well, you have no voice in this space because, well, why would you? You're not an expert. Yes, you're in healthcare, but that, then you'll get tarnished with little knowledge of dentistry. Just because you're a health professional doesn't mean you know everything about health. But what clearly you do. Clearly I do. We make decisions every day with our patients on a number of different things. How do you respond to someone like that?
So I think we've never had that before. So we've never had vaccines and needed somebody to tell us what to do. We've always been able to make our own decisions regardless of our qualifications. So, I've had conversations where people aren't allowed to have discussions in the staff room unless it's in a positive light. So, be in a staff room and staff are talking about the vaccine and the manager will say, you can only speak to me about that. That's never happened before. From a female point of view, we'll be in the staff room, be like, what contraceptive worked for you? What did that do for you? Like, how did that make you feel? And we'll have conversations and we'll have that kind of peer experience. And that will be part of us making a decision. It won't be the full part, but it'll be part. And that's not allowed to happen anymore. So, when making decisions about contraception, we don't need to be experts in fertility or experts, like with implants and things. Like, we're able to make a decision and we're able to talk to experts, come away and then weigh up the pros and cons for us. We've always been able to do this with every other decision.
Nutrition is another thing that comes to mind in that respect. We all have a view, an opinion, and understanding of nutrition, but we don't have to be a nutritionist. You don't have to be a dietitian. You can make. Yeah, I get it.
Exactly. So that would be my first thing, that we've never needed to be handheld by scientists before. And then the other thing is, if we only listen to scientists, we have blind spots because scientists think like scientists. And like I said about the COVID patients and then all the other patients, like there's not just one part to this puzzle, that there's other parts. And, you know, the way that you would speak to your patients or have a conversation, I might pick something up differently because we're not thinking the same. It doesn't mean that one's better or worse. It just means that we're coming from different angles. And by working together with both of our expertise, we're able to reduce the amount of blind spots in order to help the patient best. So yeah, one, we've never needed it before, all these experts, and also we've always had multidisciplinary discussions because we've always respected different points of view and different experiences.
Okay. And what do you think about this? Obviously, we're in the summer holidays now, and kids are off school, but there's this talk about, oh yeah, now what wasn't the case was when the vaccine first came out, oh, children won't need it because they're such low risk. Like with anything, we weigh up risks versus benefits. We're seeing and hearing reports of various responses or reactions to people getting the vaccine. And now they're talking about possibly making mandatory for children. How does that make you feel? What's the conversations out there in where you've been on your walks and met people around the country? What's the feeling around that at the moment?
So I talk about informed voluntary decision making. So I have got no problem in people making a choice that's right for them, because I don't want people taking my choice away from me, even though it might be different. So I talk about informed voluntary decision making for adults, and it has to be voluntary. I'm completely anti-coercion. But when it comes to the children, although I don't have my own children, although I'm not a pediatric nurse or a midwife or a health visitor, I am very, very concerned at the talk about vaccinating the children. We don't know the long-term risks for adults yet. I've heard a lot of people hypothetically speak about, oh, but then, you know, the children will get it and pass it on to the elderly. For so long, we have spoke about letting children be children and, you know, not putting too much pressure on them. They've already got a lot of pressure because of social media. They've already got a lot of pressure because of exams. And now we're giving them pressure not to kill their grandma or not to kill someone that they might, you know, in Asda. Like, the logic behind it really concerns me. And it really concerns me, the tunnel vision that some people have got about, and I've heard the saying a lot, don't burn the children to keep the adults warm. I personally think we should be protecting the children for this. I don't even think, you know, they should, I don't know about be aware of it, but I don't think they should be concerned about it. I don't think it should be a worry for them. I think we should be protecting the children at all costs. So I'm very concerned about that talk. But word on the street while I'm walking around is the children will unite us. That's what I think we can agree with. I think we can agree on two things from while I'm walking. One, the vaccine passports. People don't want them. And two, the children don't need it. Now, that's from people who have had the vaccine, who haven't had the vaccine, who are thinking, I might have it. Everyone that I'm speaking to, and that I don't even know how many people that is, but everyone I'm speaking to is saying the children don't need it. So I do believe the children will unite us. And I think that whereas it feels right now that we're quite polarized, I think the children will narrow that gap.
That's made me feel that's a nice thing to even think about, just that the children are going to help us out of this way. I think that's really nice.
Yeah.
There's something sweet about that, actually. There's something kind of almost sense of hope, I guess, is what that makes me feel like. And on that point, in terms of, you know, for children, the past 18 months, give or take, is a big chunk of their lives so far. And in something that you're a bigger expert than I am is in mental health. And what is your take on the effects of what on the last 18 months on mental health and children at the moment? And I get there's a range of ages in there, so it's a very broad range of ages, but just generally speaking, what's I guess there's two parts of the question actually. One part is what do you think the effects are, but secondly, what can parents do? What can families do to help the children from the mental health point of view?
So I think, and again, because I'm not a parent, it is difficult for me to say because people will take different risks. But if I had a child, I would be trying to live life as normal as possible within the restrictions. And, for compassionate reasons, I don't know whether I'm allowed to say it on the show, but for compassionate reasons, I'm hypothetically speaking now because I don't have children, but if I felt that it would help the child to go and see their grandparents during one of the lockdowns, I would take it, because I think there's going to be so many people, and I don't want to get upset, but I think there's going to be so many people that after this, once we've kind of reached that equilibrium of whatever the new normal is, that are going to reflect on this time and they're going to be so mad. They're going to be so mad. Why didn't I just go? Why didn't I just get in the car? Why did I let my child forget who their grandparent is? Like, why didn't I let the grandparent meet the child in the first year of its life? There's going to be so much anger, I think, and regret once we're out of this pickle. So I think for me, not that I have children, but I would be trying to get them to live as normal life as possible, making them aware, but not in fear. And what was the first part of the question? Because I forgot.
Just the effect of this, like I guess the long-term effect.
Yes.
With these children becoming adults at some point, what's that going to look like in the future?
Yeah. So people are talking to me about communication. So from very small children, the impact it has on communication, the impact it's having on relationships. There's children. So I've seen it where I'll be walking around and siblings will be arguing with each other, like, who gets to use the hand gel first? Like, what? And then, it's almost like that they're a good child, like, oh, please, 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 mum, please. And then the mum praises them. So then they do it even more because it's like, oh, I get praised when I do this. So, I think the child's priorities and concern about always being scared, be scared of something you can't see, be scared because people are wearing masks, be scared because it might go in your hands even though you can't see it. There's been social workers who, have been in tears talking to me because they can't enter the homes and they know that child needs them. There's been teachers who are saying that not only are children wiping the tabletops, but they're wiping every table leg. They're wiping the chair and then they're wiping every chair leg in a very ritualistic way before they'll sit down and eat their food. There's people who have got lots of emotion now coming out as anger because they're not able to communicate that and why they feel like that. And also just from a kind of like energetic point of view, where these little kids have got so much energy that they're now being told stay indoors, get on your iPad, and not have those social interactions. So I'm concerned about the children a lot. And this sounds really silly, but throughout lockdown, my husband put all the petrol in the car. I didn't go to the petrol station once. And I can't remember where I was driving to. And I forgot I'd put petrol in the car. Like, I could not remember what to do. Now, this is going from me traveling around India on my own to can't remember how to put petrol in the car. And if it's de-skilling me as an adult who's had lots of years practice putting petrol in the car, what is it doing to children that haven't had this amount of practice?
Yeah, so, I mean, the thing that just comes to mind is about, we're tactile beings, aren't we? And I think we're not able, in my work, I touch people, we work physically on people. And, I was busy during lockdown because people were losing that sense of touch. And I think that was part of it. And I think that does concern me too, with children losing that. And that does concern me. If you've forgotten how to fill up petrol in that short amount of time, what's it going to do with children who've not really had a sense of how to interact as humans in person? Yeah, that is really worrying. And how's your work with the promotion of? Tell me more about this stand in the park promotion, like promoting that you're doing, or tell me all about it.
Yeah, so as I'm walking around, so what I'm seeing is so much divide, so much polarization. There's conversations where people are saying, oh, if you've not double vaxxed, you can't come in. I don't want to see the grandkids unless you get tested. Like that, there's so much divide right now. There's a lady who her granddaughter came to meet me, and her 90 plus, she's 92, I think 91, I can't remember now. Grandma had the first vaccine, had a seizure, fallen down the stairs, and broke a femur. Didn't want the second one because of the effect that it had on her. And now her friends and family won't come and see her. So when I was in that city, so it was in St Asaph in Wales, I was like, oh, I'll go for a brew. So let me walk the city and then I'll come and have a brew. So I went and met her, and it was great. And she, I love hearing like the stories and like seeing a wedding picture and her telling me about that. But the reason why I'm saying that is about the disconnect that people are having with each other, which I don't think, I hope I never see this again. I don't think I've ever seen it before, and I don't think I hope never to see it again, how polarized people are. But what lockdown has done, I feel for the first time, is it's been able to say, I've got no friends, I'm alone, I feel lost right now. And as a result of that, rather than living this hashtag best life ever, hashtag here's my coffee of the day or whatever on Instagram, people have been able to say, look, do you know what? I haven't got any friends actually, or the friends I've got around me, we actually haven't got that much in common. And a stand in the park is, it was started in Australia, and every Sunday, 10 a.m., the list is on the website, a stand in the park. People just meet up for a coffee, chit chat, uncensored conversation. And as I'm walking each city, when I walk on a Sunday, I'll start from a different stand in the park just to raise as much awareness as possible, because I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing. And I wish I'd thought about it because I wouldn't need to walk all the cities. Like, I think it's just a brilliant idea. But the people that I've met are the friendliest, most helpful, welcoming people. So for me, I'm trying to raise as much awareness as possible that you don't have to feel alone. You can go, you can, just have a look on their Facebook and get involved with the chit chat first. And people will just welcome you, and it's brilliant. So yeah, I stand in the park every Sunday, 10 till 11, or they normally go on longer. And the people will be near like a bandstand, a cafe, or a memorial, but it's on their website and whereabouts.
Super cool. And another thing that really struck me about when I first found out about it, I was like, wow, that nurse Jenna, she's brave to like put her head above the parapet, kind of going, oh right, you know what? And it's where did that come from in Jenna? That bravery, that courage, that strength.
So I've always been able to, I say like fight for the underdog. Like I've always been able to defend somebody else when I've seen something that I perceive as wrong, but not for myself. So this is where like that alpha female empath comes from. Like I'm very empathetic, and that's my natural default position. But because of that, I didn't set clear boundaries. I allowed people to walk all over me. And that's where the alpha female comes in, where I'm like, no, I've learned how to do this now. I'm, super assertive. I'm very compassionate. And you can be those things in one. So I went from being able to, I guess, protect and defend other people. And sometimes they didn't ask me to. So I actually had to learn that not everyone wants that, because they might actually be getting something out of that situation, even though it's not right for me. To then learning how to defend myself and learning how to stick up for myself. And yeah, I guess, I don't know. A lot of people say that it's brave, but honestly, like when I'm walking around, I'm in some of the most beautiful places with some of the most amazing people, having a bit of a coffee and a chit chat. And I think I just even forget that I'm wearing the sandwich board. Like it just feels like this is just what I do now. When people say like, "Oh, Jen, you're so brave," honestly, I feel like a bit of a fraud because I'm literally just talking to people and having conversations. So yeah, I do feel like a bit of a fraud because it just feels like the right thing to do. And I wanted to empower people that. So you mentioned my husband before about are we on the same page? Like he is the statistics guy, he's the numbers guy. Like that's how his brain works, and my brain works with people and communication. But together, like we can have these conversations. So I wanted to empower people to say, you don't have to be a scientist. You don't have to remember statistics. Like you can do something. And it's whatever you can do that's in your power and control. And for me, it's walking and talking. Like, I can do that. I can do that really easily. And that's probably why it doesn't feel brave, because it comes like I can walk and I can talk.
What would you say to, I guess, two groups? I see three groups of people out there. I see the ones that are really speaking out about everything. There are groups that want to speak out about things and they feel they can't in a public setting. And then there's those who feel completely on the other side of all this and go, no, we've got to do this, that, the other, we've got to follow the rules and all this sort of thing. And I'm not suggesting that we break the law and break the rules. That's not my suggestion. My suggestion is, why can't we just question it? As just ask the question. That's it. We're not going to go against it, just so we can understand. Maybe, I don't know. So what would you say to the latter two groups there? First, the ones that do want to speak out are on the same wavelength and just feel they can't ask the questions even about what's going on, whether this is right, where the law sits in this. I mentioned Montgomery law earlier, and I'm like, where's that gone in all this? And things of that nature.
Yeah, so I think with the people who maybe don't have anything to say or haven't actually questioned if there is anything wrong about what's going on, someone said to me that the truth can't be told, it has to be learned. So I think until it personally impacts them, that's when they'll start asking questions. And someone made a very, very good point the other day when I was walking about the waiting list. So if it is that someone is now on the waiting list for a very long time, they're probably going to start asking questions because they've done everything. They've followed all the rules. They've not seen their family. They've had both the vaccines. They've been wearing the masks, and now they've got to wait X amount of months or years. I don't know how long the list is for certain things. So I think when there's a personal pain, that's when people start to ask questions if they haven't already. And I think with the middle group, it's a case of dipping your toe in. So the reason why I have my content the way I do is because, one, I don't do statistics. I'd never remember them, and you only have to get one wrong for someone to discredit you. But I try and make content where a nurse can go into a staff room and say, what do you think about that nurse? So they don't have to say, oh, look at this nurse, I agree with everything she's saying. But they can dip their toe in and ask that question. What do you think about this nurse? And then from that colleague's response, they can be like, okay, yeah, we're not on the same page here at all. But there's no argument. And I think finding common ground is really important. So a really easy one for me is, so the mask wearing, wear it to walk into the pub and then you take it off to sit down. Does that make sense to you? And then you from that common ground, you can build from that. But I always say that you can't learn Russian in an hour. So just because I have been feeling like this for 16 months or reading about it for 16 months or speaking to people about it for 16 months, if this is the first time you've had that conversation, I can't then give you 16 months of information and get annoyed with you when you shut off and walk away. So I understand a lot of people get frustrated with me because they're like, oh, well, you know, this has to be done. We have to do it this way. I'm like, but that person's closed off now. They've closed off. They've shut off from the conversation. For me, it's about sparking that curiosity of thinking, actually, yeah, why do we stand up, sit down? Like, why do we do that? And then building on that.
Amazing. Any closing thoughts or anything that you'd like people to do to help in whatever we can to get all of us out of this and go back to normal, whatever that means anymore? I'm not sure if there is a normal, what the new normal is, if there's a new normal, is the old normal, whatever that normal is, if there ever was a normal in the first place. But any final thoughts then, Jenna?
Yeah, I do think the children will unite us. I really do. And one of the reasons why I think that as well is because both of the groups, again, it's very polarized, but the people who are speaking to me who are saying, I haven't had my vaccine or I have had my vaccine and so this is what's being reported to me as those two groups of people. But I also think that people will feel safer putting their views across with the children. And what I mean by that is they might not want it themselves, but don't feel they can say it out loud. But I think that people will be able to say, I don't want my child to have it. So I think lots more conversations are going to be had when it comes to the children. So I guess what I would say is, in order to make an informed decision, you should be able to say yes, no, and not right now. Anything past that is coercion. And one of the things that someone said to me on Instagram is, if you can't accept my no, how can you accept my yes? And I think it's about challenging what's happening. And I think finding those connections so that you gain confidence, so you know you're not on your own. Because while I'm walking the streets, people are approaching me that I would have just walked past otherwise. So I think finding connection locally is really, really important for people right now, so that you can have those conversations. And when it's to healthcare and the vaccine, honestly, I don't know what the rules are or the exemptions or anything like that. But I think document everything, get your contract, have a look at your policies, have a look at acast.com, which is support, platform things. And when you get all the information, I think people are in a better position to start asking questions then to their employer.
If you could just go back to, was it acast.com? You just cut out there for a moment. So it's acast.com, was it?
Pardon?
Was it you just cut out a
The website.
briefly there? Was it acast.com?
Oh, sorry. Yep, acast.com and Medical Freedom Alliance.
Perfect. Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today, Jenna. I really appreciate you taking out time to speak with me and sharing your message about what you're doing. And I hopefully will connect again and see where we are in whether it's in a few weeks or months and pick up things again.